How's it going, everyone? Paul with Adaptable Survival. What I want to do in today's episode is continue on in the Ultralight Survival series and talk about some ultralight cutting tools, kind of my thoughts on my tools, the reason why I choose some of them, and kind of my thought process when I am selecting tools. Stick with me as we dive into it. So with this Ultralight Survival series, as I stated in the first video, my main goal is to find the middle ground between ultralight backpacking and survival, finding where they overlap, and I can find tools, gear, different things that I can carry with me that are going to accomplish a variety of tasks, but also keeping the packability and weight in mind. What I have here in front of me are 5 different tools, 5 different categories of cutting tools that I personally look towards when I am beginning to game plan my loadout for whatever I may be doing, whether it's teaching a class or going on a multi-day trip for myself. That preparation and that pre-planning is extremely important to whatever you're doing in the outdoors, because it allows you to know, one, where you're going, but also what gear you may need. I will do a video talking more in depth with pre-trip planning, all that stuff, in another time. But my main focus today is some ultralight cutting tools. So for me, I broke them down into 5 different categories here. You can think of this, Dave Canterbury has done the 5-tool rule. There's different, thoughts, theories, systems out there for deciding what gear to carry. This is just what works for me, and my main goal is to help you generate some ideas. So the first category, and we'll dive in here a little bit more in depth. This isn't an in-depth view on any of these pieces of gear. These are just talking about the different categories that I have here. So the first thing I have up is a fixed blade. So this is going to be really important. The one I have here is a BPS Savage. You're going to need a folding saw. So I have a Silky F180. Been using this for about 2 years now. A Swiss Army knife or a multi-tool. I leave that up to you to decide. I looked at the different options, and I used to carry a Leatherman Sidekick. My main carry now is a Swiss Army knife Huntsman. This allows me to have a few smaller blades and a few other tools, which we'll get into. The Mora Hatchet. So this gives me a hatchet to chop down some wood, different things like that. Like I said, we'll dive more in depth in these in a second here. And the last thing I have is a Woodsman's wedge, which obviously I can use that for splitting. So let me get in here close and we'll start diving into each one of these categories. So the first category of cutting tool that we're going to take a look at is a fixed blade knife. Now there's tons of different options for fixed blades out there. Firstly, figure out what you personally like. Some people love high carbon steel, some like stainless steel. It's going to be dependent on the environment you're going to be in. If I'm next to salt water, obviously I'm not going to be carrying a carbon steel knife with me, or at least I'm going to game plan to make sure that I'm keeping the maintenance of a carbon steel in mind. Some people like a flat grind, like the BPS Savages. Personally, I really like a flat grind. Some people like convex, some people like Scandi. So firstly, figure out what you like to carry in a knife. This BPS Savage I've been using for a little over a year now. I came across it on Amazon. It's $40. I mean, I just couldn't beat the price for it. It's a high carbon steel, 1066 high carbon steel. So it's going to, maintenance wise, it's going to be fairly easy to maintain the edge. Downside is this being not having a coating on there. As you can see, there's some rust developing. Different video, different topic for a different video. But the main things you want to make sure that you have is something with a full tang, so you can baton with this if you need to. I don't personally baton with my knife a ton, and if I do, it's usually smaller stuff to, whether it's making feather sticks or crafting something. I use this to, prepare food, prepare game. I can do all that with this knife fairly confidently. And weight wise, This is only 5.1 ounces. So really light, easy to maintain. I can do a lot of different things with it, and it just kind of fits perfectly in the system that I'm kind of going with. I do plan on designing my own fixed blade so that I have kind of my own personal blade, but you don't necessarily need to do that. If you do find something on the market that fits the bill perfectly for you, you know, just roll with that, make that work in your system. So the next category of cutting tool we're going to take a look at is the SAK, or a multi-tool. Before I started carrying this Victorinox Huntsman, I did carry a Leatherman Sidekick for close to 4 years. Really like that tool, but this SAK is significantly lighter. I think that Sidekick came in 8-9 ounces, where this Huntsman about 3.4, so 3.5 ounces. Significantly lighter, a lot more compact. I have a ton of tools in here that I'll definitely use while I'm out in the woods. So the main ones that I use are the 2 blades that come on this one. You know, you have kind of a medium-sized blade and then a smaller blade. If I'm thinking in terms of my fixed blade as my large blade, medium blade, small blade with the small one. I like this small one in particular because it allows me to clean up notches, clean up any kind of fine work that I may be doing. With this blades being stainless steel, maintenance is really simple because they stay sharp for a long time. The other tool I have on here is a saw. This one doesn't lock, but I've never had issues. I've gone entire classes just using this SAK for any cutting purposes. The benefit of this SAK is you also have a pair of scissors on here, you have a toothpick, you have tweezers, you have a corkscrew if you and your partner decide to drink some wine on the trail. So it gives me a lot of tools that fit in a small package. Very packable. I can throw this in my pocket and not have to worry about it. Put it in my pack. Doesn't take up a ton of space. So keeping that packability in mind, this for me I found is the right tool for my system. So that's something to kind of consider when you start selecting just a smaller utility blade, something that you EDC or that you can quickly access when you're on the trail. So the third category of cutting tool that we're going to take a look at is some sort of folding saw. I've been carrying the Silky F180 for just over 2 years now, and I've had 0 issues with this. This is a saw that cuts on the pull, not the push, so that's something to keep in mind so you don't snap your blade. But I haven't had to replace this blade at all. I've cut, I don't even know how much wood with this thing, and it's held up strong. Has kind of some light fading in the colors, but to me that doesn't matter. As long as it functions, it's what I am most concerned with. The spine on the blade itself is sharp, so I can strike a ferro rod if I need to, so it just kind of gives me an additional striker in comparison to my full tang knife, my SAK, or my multi-tool. Weight wise, 7 ounces, so a little less than half a pound. I will throw the weight up of a regular Silky Gomboy on the screen, but there's a lot of different options for a folding saw. Just find one that works for your system. This one, weight wise, size wise, just kind of fits perfectly for me, so I haven't switched it out very often. So next up, we'll take a look at my Hatchet. Now obviously this is going to be the heaviest cutting tool out of all the ones we look at today, but I've been looking for a hatchet that I can use for cutting down larger wood, splitting larger wood. So I came across this Mora earlier this year. I've been using it off and on throughout the year as I wanted to test it out, and I like it weight wise because right around a pound. Blade is nice and sharp, as comes customary with any Mora. The downside, I will say, with this hatchet in particular is the size of this head. It's not going to be the most conducive to splitting, but you can definitely make it work, just taking into account that if this was a tool that you're going to be rolling with. But I got it because it's nice and light. I can use it primarily as a chopper if I want to. If I can put the mask back on here properly. And weight wise, like I said, 1 pound fits kind of in the realm of what I'm trying to do. When we talk about the next category of tool, I may look at finding something that encompasses both of these tools, so now I just further kind of save some space, save weight, and kind of make the most of my cutting tools. But having a hatchet can come in invaluable depending on what you're doing. Wintertime it's really great to split down larger firewood. Obviously this is going to have some limitations just because of the size. So if I'm really trying to cut down some logs, really split some bigger stuff down, I'm definitely going to have to find the right tool for the job, which we will cover towards the end of this video. So the last tool that we'll look at, and I won't even call this its own category, this is more of a subcategory of the Hatchet, but is the Woodsman's wedge. Now this thing's been out for well over a year from SRO. I know it's sold out. I do believe they sold this design to Case, and I do believe they're supposed to be coming out with these. I haven't heard any exact time frame on that, but that is something to keep in mind. So when I first got this, I wasn't completely sure how this would fit into my system. I could see the resourcefulness of it. I'm just like, I'm not sure how I can incorporate that into the gear I carry. But when I started looking more into the Ultralight Survival series and kind of game planning this, I found the need for it. Because even if I decide to go without a hatchet and I just bring this, one, I'm saving a ton more space because, you know, this is roughly about the size of the head of this hatchet. Weight wise, it's about half the weight of a hatchet, so it gives me the ability to split some larger wood. Now I can't necessarily chop down some larger trees, but that's why I carry a folding saw that I can tackle those kind of tasks with. So looking at it in that spectrum, it kind of can fit into the need here. This is made out of aluminum, 8 ounces like I said, so weight wise it's going to be pretty light in comparison to if it was made out of steel. All I got to really do is find a straight stick that I can, you know, fit into the grooved hole here, and then I have an easily built tool that can split stuff. Now, when I said, talking about the Hatchet, of looking at combining these two tools, the limitations of the Mora Hatchet's head for splitting, because obviously if you look at the top of that, it's really, really thin, where if it had more of a V taper like this, like the Woodsman wedge, I could split a lot easier. I could combine two tools into one. So I know like there's the Fisker X7 out there and kind of some knockoff ones of that. So I might look back at using one of those again to kind of fill the Hatchet need for splitting. But I can always go with this Woodsman's wedge and save space and be a little bit more efficient in my packing. Something to note with the Woodsman's wedge, don't use any kind of metal to pound on this, because obviously if you use steel and pound on its aluminum, it's going to damage it. I usually use wooden baton of some hardwood. So something to keep in mind with all these ultralight cutting tool options, I'm not saying carry every single one of these. What I'm saying is look at what you're going to be doing, kind of game plan what tools may be necessary, and then have those with you just in case you do need them. I think total weight with all of these tools, you know, the BPS Savage being 5 ounces, the Silky being 7, my SAK being 3.5, the Woodsman's wedge being 8 pounds, and then the Mora Hatchet being a pound. You know, you're looking at the ballpark of what, 3-ish pounds or so. I'll put the exact weight on the screen here. But as you can see with the tools that I have here, if I leave the Hatchet, bring everything else, I'm only looking at 2.5 pounds worth of weight added to my pack, and a ton more of capability with the tools that I have on hand now. So with the series, I want to kind of broaden your understanding of cutting tools, the gear you're carrying, how you can find tools now with all the modern technologies that we have that can accomplish a ton of tasks, but not necessarily carry around, you know, 5 pounds worth of tools with you. This is all subjective. Carry what you like. By no means am I saying you have to carry any of this stuff if you're an ultralight backpack or any of that. What I am just trying to do with this is explore the different options that we have in gear on the market today, and how we can best find tools to fit our needs for what we do outdoors. So in the comment section down below, if you have any lightweight cutting tool options, some ultralight options, hatchets, anything like that, drop those down in the comment section down below. I'm always looking to see what y'all are using, all the tidbits of knowledge that you share, because that engagement in the comment section is always appreciated, and I try to respond to everyone as best I can. Sometimes there's so many comments that I just can't keep up with it. As always, hit that like and subscribe button. That gets more eyes on what we're doing here at the channel, brings those people into our community so we can learn together and grow together. As always, it's been Paul with Adaptable Survival. Adapt your mind, your body, and your gear.